One question that I've come across a lot is how to get over the fear of moving. Like, how do you get over the fear of leaving everything and everyone behind? And obviously, what about finances? We all need money in this world system that we've created and uphold. So, how can we guarantee that we'll have a source of income once we move? Whether you want to move abroad or make a move within your own country, and I've done both of those, I want to share the 5 things that I thought about when I was making those moves. And thinking through these things really helped to relieve a lot of anxiety for me and help me to become more confident in my decision. But before I continue, I do want to quickly let you know what you're in for on this channel. So I created this channel to inspire and encourage you to live the life that you want, regardless of how much income you have or how much money you have. And I know that you can do this because, I still found a way to opt out of the workforce despite having not much money. And if I can do something like that, if I can get a hold of the things that I want, so can you. And I'm here to tell you how you can do that. So going back to the topic. Now, these aren't in any particular order, but the first thought that I'm going to start with is going through the trade-offs. So number 1, would the trade-offs to make the move be worth it? In previous videos, I've talked about thinking through the trade-offs that you'll need to make to get what you want, because you're going to need to know exactly what those are. So I already knew the things that I'd be losing or giving up to make my move. But in this instance, I kind of reframed the question in the opposite way, and I thought, okay, what would I be gaining? What would I be gaining by giving up certain things to make this move? And I think that thinking through those things that I would gain really helped to relieve a lot of anxiety that I was having, because it reminded me that although I was losing things, right, there were significant things that I'd be gaining. Now, how I did this specifically is that first, I wrote out all of the trade-offs, right? All of the things that I'd be giving up or losing out on in order to make the move. Then on the opposite side of that list, or underneath that list, I wrote out all of the things that I'd be gaining by making the move. Being able to see that comparison of things that I'd be giving up versus things that I'd be gaining really helped to solidify in my brain that I wanted to make the move for a reason. And doing this helped remind me that the reasoning was worth it. So the second thing that I thought about was, number 2, I knew that finances weren't guaranteed where I was anyway. So thousands of people are being laid off by companies all the time, whether they are working, in person or working remotely. Job security doesn't exist anymore, and there's no guarantee that I wouldn't get laid off. At some point, even if I stayed where I was, there was a high chance that I would end up laid off or let go. And I was right about that because I did get laid off. As an aside though, so I had made the move from one province to another before I got laid off, right? But if I didn't make that move when I did, I would not be in the position I am now where I could opt out of the workforce. I would have been stuck in the place that I was, paying a lot of money for my expenses, and I wouldn't have made the investment into the home that I did, that I moved for, which ultimately led me to being able to opt out of the workforce. Now, I understand that this is anecdotal evidence, right? It's just like one person's story, but I say that to say that you don't know if you moving will end up being very beneficial to you in the future. Now, the third thing that I thought about was, number 3, money. So I had already done my research about what it costs to move to my new place. For the most part, I had been able to predetermine the costs. That was part of thinking through the trade-offs. I would definitely suggest that you think about those costs as well, and I'll link a video where I talked a little more about that. But in terms of financing myself in my new location, there are different ways that people can do that, like starting an online business or working remotely for another company, and I'll link my resources for remote work below. I did do that for over 7 years, so I do have some information to share there. But in my case, my income, me thinking about money, I had set myself up for that because I chose to rent out my home and live in a place where my rental income can cover my expenses. Now, see, that first move that I made that I mentioned in the previous point, that move was to buy that home. That home initially was not an investment. I had meant to live there for a long time, but the move was to buy that home. My husband and I thought it was really important for us to get a home, and we decided to move somewhere where homes were cheap so that we could do that, because we would be able to get a home for under $100,000. And although the trade-offs were that they were big, I'd have to move away from everything and everybody I knew. That move would allow me more freedom because I'd have significantly less expenses because I wouldn't have a mortgage. So because I made that first move, it made it easier for me to make the next one. And since I didn't have a mortgage, it made it easier for me to rent out the home and then move somewhere else and live off the rental income. So I didn't have to think too much about money. Now, what this looks like for you, it doesn't have to look like what it was for me. For you, it might be an investment. So it might be something like the stock market or real estate or like something you own that you're renting out. But it can also look like getting a remote job, which is definitely something I'd recommend, by the way. It certainly makes moving easier. But it can also look like, securing a job in the place that you want to move to. A lot of people have done that as well. Or at least like securing housing, house sitting, workaway studies, stuff like that. Now, the fourth thing that really helped ease my anxiety about moving was that, number 4, if I don't like a place, I can always move. So just because I move somewhere doesn't mean I have to stay there forever. And I think that's what trips a lot of people up. We don't have to live there forever, right? We're not trees. We have legs. We can move. And, I'm certainly not the first person to move and then move again. And I know I won't be the last. Even in the past, people moved all the time. People move now. My own grandparents and parents moved multiple times with kids in tow. So if I don't like the place I chose, I know that I can always move again. Or even move back to where I came from if that's what it takes. Now, I understand this can be easier said than done depending on your situation, but the decision to move isn't permanent, right? Like, I can always revert the decision and go back to doing whatever I was doing previously if I find that this move isn't working for me. Some decisions are pretty irreversible, but moving isn't one of them. And honestly, anytime I have made a move, it has always worked out better for me. And I'm hoping it'll be the same for you. And the last thing that I thought about was number 5, I only live once. So I don't want to reach the end of my life and be thinking about my past and thinking about what if I made the move, or regretting things that I didn't do. Not everyone desires to move, but I did. And because I only live once, I want to ensure that I'm able to do the things that my heart desires, which was in this case moving. I live one life and I want to ensure that I can make the most of it. So essentially, thinking through my mortality really helped put things in perspective for me when it came to making that move. Thinking through my mortality has actually helped with a lot of things. But that is it. Those are the 5 things that I had thought through that really helped ease a lot of anxiety for me for moving. And I hope that sharing my perspective was very helpful to you. And I hope it encouraged you to make your own move. And if it was helpful, I'd love to know. So just, leave a note in the comments and let me know which tip you found the most helpful. And if you haven't already, I would definitely recommend subscribing to ensure that you don't miss any of my other videos, because if you like this one, you're probably going to like the other ones. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.